With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. Space, the final frontier. That's where things are going, right? I mean, just look what happened with SpaceX this last week. Those booster rockets landing simultaneously, synchronized, was one of the sexiest things I've ever seen because it just puts us one step closer to space travel, localized space travel. Before I die, hopefully, will be able to enter zero gravity. Just to go up there and to see what it's like would just be so cool. Or maybe entirely boring. I don't know yet, right? You float up there and you're like, wow, space. It's so dark. I mean, I've seen those stars before, but like, there's nothing much else out here to look at. I mean, I know there's Earth, but like, I just came from there. Is there a mall? Like, I mean, I'm just saying it could be like that. But when it comes to it, ultimately, I feel space is going to take us cool places, and I'm hoping to get to go up there before I die. I'm hoping. Now, Trump, on the other hand, apparently wants to cut budgets for the International Space Station. And this is something that's going to be a hotly debated topic. Now, it says here that President Donald Trump wants to end U.S. funding for the International Space Station by 2025 with the aim of putting it into private hands. So, basically, the privatization of the ISS. Now, his plans for ISS and the NASA space program were unveiled in his 2019 budget proposal. Mr. Trump wants to increase NASA spending by 3% next year, but it also includes $150 million to encourage commercial development at the ISS, I almost said ISIS, to replace American payments. So basically trying to bring capitalism to the International Space Station. Okay. The space station is scheduled to operate through 2024. So I guess maybe that makes sense, right? Like if they could find a way to bring in private businesses like, like SpaceX or whatever the hell it is, Virgin Space, whatever Branson's up to, that could be something that could be used as a way to offset our commitments financially to that space station, and then focus on maybe more of the deep space exploration, at least in terms of telescopes or just seeing what else is up there. Because didn't they basically made like localized space travel a thing? So it says here that the budget proposal proposes to end direct U.S. financial support for the International Space Station in 2025, after which NASA would rely on commercial partners for its low Earth orbit research and technology demonstration requirements. This is coming from the White House proposal, which was released on Monday, saying that the U.S. government would create a $150 million program to help prepare private companies to take over space station operations over the next 7 years. The budget requests $19.6 billion for NASA in 2019, an increase of $500 million from this year. It also calls for a $10.5 billion for an innovative and sustainable campaign of exploration, leading to the return of humans to the moon for long-term exploration and utilization, followed by a human mission to Mars and other destinations. So essentially, it's like, hey, listen, we help out the International Space Station. We kind of want the money we put into that back in order to send somebody to Mars. Or it's been a long time since we've gone to the moon. Isn't it coming up on like nearly 40 years since we've gone to the moon, right? Like what's happened up there since then? Probably nothing. Probably nothing. But ultimately, it's like, they want to go back to the moon. It says, how will ISS survive? In 2015, Congress guaranteed funding for the U.S. in part of the International Space Station until 2024. But discussions on what to do with it beyond the deadline have been underway for some time. Since the first space station module was launched in 1998, NASA focus has shifted away from operations in low Earth orbit using the shuttle back towards deep space, with the moon, Mars, and asteroids all named as possible future exploration targets. And that's something I absolutely agree with. It's like, it's cool that we have the ISS, and it's cool that like it's a thing and that they're looking at low Earth orbit and everything else. But it's such a vast universe out there. I think some people are hankering to get on exploring. They probably played No Man's Sky a couple years ago and went, this looks like fun. Until they actually played No Man's Sky and went, oh wow, Sean Murray's full of lies. He turned my PlayStation into a house of lies. That hurt, Sean. Anyway, the administration's proposal echoes the views of some legislators who are eager for the $3 billion a year it costs NASA to operate the station redirected towards the Orion crew capsule and the SLS rocket, the vehicles being developed for deep space journeys. but any bid to end federal funding for the station after 2024 is likely to run into considerable resistance. Democrat Senator Bill Nelson said the White House would have a fight on its hands if it wanted to pull out in the mid-20s. And that's probably because they probably look at it the same way that many Democrats looked at, let's say, the Paris Climate Accord or the climate agreements. And I know it's kind of a weird comparison to make, but it's like working together with other countries in terms of space exploration, or at least, what we have local, feels like it makes more sense than not doing it. Right. Same thing with the Paris Accord. It's just like, working with other countries to better our planet as a whole feels like something that would be good for us as a whole. And what do we learn out of that is just, well, China is going to be getting into making their own solar panels. And then in 10 years, we're going to all be buying solar panels from China, and we lost out on an innovative market here in the United States. And that again, something that was said, I don't know how true it is, but that, is kind of but China is developing a lot of solar technology. So, but opposition is also coming from the sector that would, on the face of it, seem to stand to gain the most, the aerospace industry. Senior executive from Boeing, NASA's prime contractor on the ISS, warned that an early handover to commerce could actually jeopardize future private sector participation. And then there's also those who feel that privatizing the station contradicts the project's original aims. From their perspective, the ISS should remain a potent symbol of international cooperation and a platform for scientific research, not a venue for commercial companies to turn a tidy profit. Essentially, nobody wants a McDonald's on the ISS, is, part of it. I mean, that's not all that would happen, but, you can kind of get what's going on here. It should be a cooperative thing, and we've made the investment to stick with it. And maybe that's for the best, but then again, 3 to 4 billion a year is what we give out to them. So that can be a bit of a problem. Now, Robert Lightfoot, NASA's acting administrator, called it a pretty exciting time for the agency, saying it really reflects the administration's confidence that America will lead the way back to the moon and take the next giant leap from where we made a first small step for humanity some 50 years ago. Democratic Senator Bill Nelson, a former astronaut, said the proposed plan to stop funding the International Space Station makes no sense, saying here on Twitter, the administration's budget for NASA is a non-starter. Turning off the lights and walking away from our sole outpost in space at a time when we're pushing the frontiers of explanation makes no sense. And, I can see why he would probably want to think that, and part of me, I can see both sides here, right? So to me, yeah, it does make little sense. It does. This is a cooperational thing between a multitude of countries. We all participate. We are all meant to use, to kind of benefit together. They want to start looking out past the localized area, moving further out into the cosmos, which is cool. And they don't want to sit there and just kind of hand it over to somebody else. They don't want to just hand it over. And I think that's like the entire plot of the movie Geostorm, but whatever. The same time, though, it's the cost is that could be reallocated into then getting us to the moon and getting us to Mars and getting us beyond. So is what we're learning from the International Space Station so important that it needs to be maintained and kept going at that very large cost? Or should we reinvest that and to get us to Mars first in order to then benefit from the research we would get there? And there are arguments to be made on both sides. Part of me thinks to myself, like, it would be interesting to see what would happen if we just kind of said, screw it, hand it over to a private company, or part of it at least, and then, set our sights on Mars. Because that to me feels more like the future. But at the same time, I would love there to be a way for us to have it all. I just don't know if there is.